So today we have a dynamic mindset coach, podcaster, mother, all the things. We're so excited for this conversation today because it's about mindset shifts, which we could all use at all times. Please welcome mindset coach Makini Smith. Yay, I'm so excited.
Hey.
Hi, Makini. Thank you so much for joining us today to get our minds right, sis. We are ready. We are ready.
Hello, ladies. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. It really is crazy because literally all week I have been in such a confused, funky state. And today I was just like, it's going to be a good day. I have decided,
Yes.
no matter what it's looking like, it's going to be a good day. I'm
Yes.
accepting nothing less.
It's all about the decisions.
Yes.
That part.
Yeah, I just have been in a similar funk, Alicia, like I was saying, that I just haven't been feeling like myself. My mind, like my mental clarity hasn't really been like how it usually is.
Yeah.
That typically happens to me when I'm PMSing, but I'm still breastfeeding. So it's very confusing. It could be all the things, who knows? But I was just like, you know what, today I woke up and I was like, I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm so blessed. Life is so wonderful. I'm above ground. I'm breathing. I'm healthy. My family's healthy. Like all the gratitude. And I just think gratitude is always like the easiest thing to come back to whenever you are feeling like that, to kind of shift your mindset. So that's my kind of like anchor. But yeah, I'm with Alicia. Like today is just a little bit. How are you feeling, Makini? What's your energy like today?
I am feeling good this morning. It's been a long week. I've had some wins. I've overcome some struggles. So I'm feeling good this morning. I'm feeling really good.
Yes.
Well, I'm happy to have you on. I remember I was on your podcast a couple of months ago, a walk in my stilettos, and I still need to share that conversation on my socials. Don't. It's been a long couple months. We'll talk later about all the things. But that conversation was so good, and I really, really liked how you have defined who you are in spite of what the outside looked like, what was working, wasn't working. There's this tenacity that I really, really loved, because I'm a firm believer, like knowing who you are and being confident, right? And whomever that is, it truly does inform your choices. And we are now asking every single person who joins us on this podcast, like, who do you say you are?
That is a very powerful question. And thank you for that. I would say that I am a healer.
Oh, yes.
When I was little, my mother used to talk about how I was going to be a little minister and all this stuff. And I was like, no. I was like such the rebel. And the more that I have tapped into the truth of who I am, and the more that I have been able to share my gifts with the world and connect with other women and to get their feedback and just to see the impact on their lives, I truly believe that I've been called to help people to heal, especially women, because we've got all of these childhood traumas and these issues and these mental struggles that we deal with. And a lot of us are in our heads or in our own minds or in our homes thinking that we're the only ones going through that. So being able to not only share the truth of my story and the authentic stories like yours, and all the other women that come on the podcast and the work that I do, just being able to have women have that social proof to realize, okay, you are not your current circumstance. You are not that thing that you went through. You like the truth of who you are, your spiritual DNA is perfect. So being able to help other women to overcome those things and to inspire other women to, walk in their own greatness, I truly believe that I am a healer.
Okay, spiritual DNA.
Yeah. When you said healer, I got chills. I was like, oh yeah, that resonated. That's awesome. I love that. Because I definitely think, especially sometimes, you said ministry, so I'm assuming you grew up in the church.
My mother, long story short, my mother, my father's a Rastafarian, my mother's a Christian. They split when I was a year old. And my mother tried to send me to church with the neighbors because she was working multiple jobs as a single mom. And then as I got older, like my mom is now a minister, she's ordained. So I've been I was going to the same church with my mother for like 12 years, 2 days a week. But you and I, Alicia, had this conversation on my podcast about, not necessarily having to be engulfed by the church. But yes, I'm a believer.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say to that is sometimes because it may not fit into like the religious constructed box of healing or ministry, it can sometimes feel like, well, maybe that's not what you're doing. I know I'm someone who grew up in church, and because I'm not an evangelist or this or that, you sometimes feel like you're not healing or you're not helping because you're not doing it within those confines.
Yeah.
So I love that you're still able to define yourself as that with the knowledge and being a believer, but understanding that it doesn't have to be within that context, I think is such an interesting thing for people to kind of start to think about, and to think in that way that, hey, it doesn't have to be A, B, and C, or in this place or at that place or on this stage for you to still have an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a rebel within my church. So I was there for 12 years. And every time I was asked, when am I going to serve within the church? I always said I was called to serve outside of the church.
Yeah.
I connect more with the people who feel too ashamed to walk into the doors of the church. I connect more with the people who, I'm going to say, have negative views of the church.
Yeah.
Because through my life and my living and me being true to who I am, and to still being able to love hard on other people want to know, oh, well, what do you believe? Who do you believe in? Instead of like trying to beat people over the head with a Bible. That's just not my approach. I'm not very religious in that way.
Yeah, it's more about example. Yeah, I resonate with that 100%. So you are a mindset coach. And a lot of times whenever people hear that, they think that you need to be an entrepreneur or a business person or some level of something in order to need a mindset coach. Who do you feel like really needs mindset coaches?
Everybody. So everybody needs a mindset coach. Everybody needs a mentor.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a therapist. We need a team of people to help keep us at our most optimal level. We need that team of people to help support us, that healthy community of support. You don't have to be just an entrepreneur or anything like that. And a lot of my clients aren't.
Okay. Yeah. Because it's something that people have these preconceived notions about, that you don't need to take that kind of control over your mental health, or it's just like, oh, you go to the doctor for your checkup as long as you're physically like getting by, because a lot of us are not thriving physically, we're surviving physically. So it's like, okay, well, I go to the doctor, my heart's still beating, I should be okay, not realizing how much of an impact our mental state is going to have on our overall lives.
Absolutely. And like a huge part of it's not even just like mental health. It's also just our thought process, our beliefs, our habits. And I feel like in terms of what type of person may actually need it most is people who are 9-to-5ers, because they're in this system of beliefs, go to school, get a good job, work for somebody for the rest of your life, be miserable, and then die. So it's helping them to shift that mindset, to be able to tap into the truth of who they are and what their value is, and what they can bring to the world, and like not stay within the confines of that box.
Yeah, I really like that, especially being that there is absolutely nothing wrong with a corporate position. I love my folks in corporate, just like I love my entrepreneurs. There's a place and space for everybody. Everybody has a lane, flow, fly and flex in your lane.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said. And even in owning your own business, because like I hated my business, but I felt I had to be miserable and stay in it, and it kind of brings me back to a scripture, and Danny's going to laugh at me and pick on me again. But it's kind of like why sit we here till we die? Basically, like I am miserable in this place. Like I do not like it. It was talking about, I believe it was the folks who had leprosy, because you weren't allowed to be around anyone. If you had leprosy, you had to basically excommunicate yourself from the community, and you weren't allowed to be around them. And so it's like, well, either we gonna die out here with no food, or we gonna go into these other people camp to see if they got food, and they gonna kill us anyway. but we gonna die either way, either from starvation or from somebody stabbing us with their sword. So let's go ahead and just, take a chance.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like people literally do that, where there is a possibility, out there to have, whether it's a level of success or it's an unknown, right? I don't know what this is, but I kind of want to try it to see, but I'm too scared. So I'm gonna sit here in this place and space where I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled. It's hard as hell for me to tap into the pieces of joy that I want to tap into. And it always brings me back to that scripture. Why sit we here till we die? You don't like this. This does not work for you. Why not get your ass up and change it? Do something different.
Absolutely.
And now, like, as mental health is becoming like a lot less taboo. Like before, to say you were having a mental challenge, oh no, you better go get on your knees and you better tarry until they bleeding and bloody to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
But now it's becoming a lot less taboo, understanding that some things you can't pray away, some things you need medicine for. Some things you need to talk out. Some things you need an energy therapist to help you move through those healing or those feelings and emotions and experiences and traumas. Like some some post-traumatic stress disorder, you can't hope that one away.
No.
So what are like some of the few ways for people who are still trying to wrap their head around what does it look like to go to a therapist or to a mindset coach or to invest in like the healing of like their energy? Like what are like some of the few ways that you suggest people can like get started to improve their mental health?
So, I mean, you said so many important things there. And I think to answer your question and also, tie into what you said, like whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for someone else, there's so many people who are doing things that they don't enjoy. And one of the very first things we do in a session together is to look at, what do you love? What would you love your life to look like? Because oftentimes people are presently in a position and they're just taking what they can get, whether that be their job or entrepreneurship. We're just accepting whatever comes our way. But if you were to look at what you love, if you were to sit down and paint a picture for yourself of what you would like your life to look like, because as humans, we think in pictures. If I said to you right now, dog, you would picture a dog. You're not going to picture the letters DOG, right? You will picture a particular dog. Like you have that vision. So what is the vision that you have for your life? What do you want? And then when you do that, then you can be satisfied within your corporate job or your entrepreneurship or whatever it is that you're doing, because it's connected to what you want and what you love, right? It's very different. A lot of people are in positions at work, doing things because that's what their parents expected them to do, or what their partner wanted them to do, or what a teacher once told them that they could do, but they're not tapped into what they truly want to do. So they're miserable, right? And even with entrepreneurship, we have people who are starting businesses because, I don't know, their parents passed something down to them or what have you, but they haven't looked at what they truly love. So it's starting with, what would you love it to be? What would you like your life to look like? Setting that vision for yourself, setting that intention for yourself, and moving towards that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I definitely, but sometimes I don't even think people, especially women, because we're all a lot of times focused on what's expected of us versus what we truly want. You know what I mean? So sometimes that's like, how do we even begin to determine what we really want? Like to even get to the point of like setting that intention and figuring that out, because I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's Disney, I don't know if it's storybooks, I don't know if it's Aesop's Fables, I don't know what it is, but I think some kind of conditioning happens in the childhood of women that kind of conditions us to get into this space where we always are seeking validation and the opinions of others to kind of guide us through. It's like we're not very few of us, and I'm sure there's an exception, but the rule is, for the most part, very few of us are really confident in our own decision making and tuning into our inner voice. So like, how would you say you could even get started to even kind of start to do that so that you can get to the point of setting that intention?
Right. Okay. So we are programmed. We are programmed to get the results that we are getting right now. Every single one of us, man, woman, or child, right?
Yeah.
Everything that you do right now, it's programming in your subconscious mind. That's
Yes.
in your feeling mind, right? So that programming, it's like the thermostat in your house. If you set the thermostat, like I'm here in Canada, so I'm going to use Celsius. But if I set the thermostat to 22 degrees Celsius, everything I do, if let's say I open the door, if it's cold outside, it's going to get colder in here, but the thermostat is going to kick in and bring that setting back to what's programmed. So as people, we are the same way,
That's
right?
a great way to
So
put it.
we are programmed for the results that we are getting right now because of the conditioning that was programmed in as a child, what you saw growing up in the environments that you were in, the way that you had to, soothe your own emotions as a child, from whether it be your parents' expressions on their face or how they disciplined you or whatever. It's all programming. So as women, a lot of us, because of our programming and childhood traumas and childhood wounds, we have been conditioned to try to seek validation, to seek comfort, to seek those things, right? To do what is expected of us. Because if we went out of our way to do what we wanted to do, if someone said something negative or gave us a certain look or had a certain reaction, inside we're like, oh, that didn't feel good. I'm not going to do that again. So our programming brings us right back to where we are. But they say after the age of like 25, there's only two ways to change your programming. One is through a huge emotional bang, which is usually trauma, right? We go through something traumatic and it changes our way of thinking or how we process things. Or two, through repetition and consistency.
Oh.
So with coaching, especially with mindset coaching, it's a lot about taking action, but then being accountable for that action and then the consistency of that action. So if you wanted to change a particular habit, let's say you're a woman, because you said you're a health coach, right?
Yes.
So let's say you're a woman who feels that you are, 25 pounds overweight and you want to be a particular weight. If you haven't put any consistent habits in place and you're just looking at a certain size, you're going to go to the gym 2 times and be like, this is too hard. Your programming is going to kick in. You're going to go back into what you know, and then you're not going to be consistent with it, right?
Absolutely.
So it's making the consistent habit changes. So what does, first setting the vision. Okay, what does a healthy woman look like to you, right? And to each one of us, that vision could be different.
Yeah.
But then when you set that vision, okay, well, what would that type of woman eat every day? How much hours of sleep at night is that woman going to get? How we have that saying in the church, like, what would Jesus do? Right? So whatever vision you set for yourself, well, what would that person do? Right? It's starting to look at the identity of who we want to be, or who we want to become, rather than doing the activities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those things
that's literally what I do in my sessions, because I more so have them picture whoever that person is as a higher version of themselves. Yeah. I try to kind of stay away from that idea of like envision like Halle Berry or Beyonce. It's like, you're not them. You're never going to look like that. So envision you as whoever that healthy person is. And a lot of times, even in the program, sometimes people are like waiting for the meal plan and waiting for the regimen. And I'm just like, I can give you all that. If your mind isn't in the right place, you're not going to do none of it. I do a lot of work on trying to shift the mindset, because it doesn't matter. And then that's why 98% of people who start diets, they end up falling off of them and getting even worse results down the line, because their mindset was in the right place. Like, I definitely even know people that have gone all the way to get like lap band surgery and weight loss surgeries. And within 2 years, all the weight is back on. And it's just like, because your mind wasn't where it was supposed to be for you to get the results that you want to keep them. So yeah, that resonates with me so deeply, because that's the problem. That's really the problem, is that your mind isn't ready to do it and your body's not going to follow.
Your mind is programmed to find anything that it loses. Right.
Yep.
So if you lost those 20 pounds, hold on,
we're going to need you to run that back, Makini. Hold on.
We got to take notes, sis, on that one. Hold on.
What? So fast. Say that again.
Your mind is programmed to find anything that it loses.
Ooh,
So
okay.
if you lose those 20 pounds, your mind is trying to figure out how to get it back, and sometimes more, right? So if you don't shift the mindset first, then your body's not going to follow,
Nope.
because that's not the way that the system works. Like, your subconscious mind is your thinking mind, your conscious mind is your feeling mind, and then that affects the action, what your body does, and that's how you get the results. So people think that they're going to go out there and get a result without changing what's going on in here, and your brain is like, where is that thing that I just lost?
Yep. Oh my God.
That is so true. Like, my
Wow.
grandmother recently had a stroke, and with the stroke, she threw a blood clot, so she had to have emergency brain surgery. Because of where the stroke was, she has an extremely difficult time remembering things, short term and long term. And literally sometimes I am watching her try and trying to connect the things. And what you said is so true. Like, her mind is literally struggling to find the things that it has lost. And I never, ever thought of it that way. Like, yo, mind blown.
Our minds were programmed for safety, right?
Yep.
So that thing that she's looking for, she felt safe with that thing. So her brain is like, we need to find that safety.
And maybe that's why I think a lot of times people can't understand victims of especially domestic abuse, why they keep going back. And people get into this space of judgment, and they're just like, well, what's wrong with her? I mean, what's wrong with him? Because men are also victims of domestic abuse. Let's keep it real. But people sometimes don't understand being stuck in that loop, and people that are outside looking in, they're like, well, obviously they should leave. And obviously this is toxic, but it's just not that simple, because you'd be surprised how after a while, your mind will start to feel safe in a toxic environment, because that's what it knows. And your body's like, okay, well, if I leave here, what's on the other side of that is far more terrifying than what you're dealing with in that moment. And I had to learn that, having friends or knowing people who are victims of domestic abuse. And once I started doing my own journey and educating myself, it was just like, wow, like I totally see it very differently. And I don't view it as weakness or stupidity or some of the things that I hear people say. It's like, nah, when you understand how the mind works and those loops that you get trapped into, it's just like, it's amazing that when women can actually leave. Like, it is one of the hardest things to do. And the kind of mind work and brave and like courage it takes is astounding. Like it's incredible. I
have goosebumps right now for so many different reasons. So, okay. I'm someone who has had, I'm going to say, multiple toxic relationships, only one that got physical. And I had to, in the last 2 years, I did a lot of studying on a certain personality type, because I had to learn to understand how I kept entering into those toxic relationships. Oftentimes, we don't look at our contribution to those things, right? And, I started studying things like narcissistic personality disorder, because I dated men with narcissistic personality disorder. Whole nother story there.
Who hasn't?
But I had to look at what, they're attracted to people with strong qualities that they can emulate. They're attracted to empaths. They're attracted to a certain type of people, right? So when I started studying those things, how did I become that person? And then you look at the childhood traumas and the programming from a child, or your caregiver or your guardian wasn't providing you with the needs that you needed. Because we all had needs, and especially in the Caribbean community, where we're basically, like a lot of us who have West Indian parents or come from the Black community, our parents, old school parents, their way of parenting, they may have been doing the best they could at that time with what they had, not realizing that they were being toxic. But, the children should be seen and not heard, and how they were disciplining us and telling us to keep our mouths, shut. So all of our needs were suppressed. We were basically taught to please the guardian or caregiver, but then that made us become people pleasers, because parent pleasers grow up to be people pleasers.
And Captain Save-A-Holes. That's all we do is Captain Save-A-Hole.
Everybody. I'm trying to save everybody. Sit down. I stopped saving. I said, let me take this cape off. This don't fit.
Right. It hurts my neck. It hurts my neck.
It's too tight. It gotta go.
Yes.
It gotta go. But you speaking truth, and I literally have goosebumps. Like, this is so good to me. I'm so sorry I interrupted you, but please continue.
No, go ahead. Like, I just wanted to say, like, a lot, once we understand those things, right, we can start to have more empathy and compassion for the people who are in toxic relationships or who have experienced those things long term, instead of victim shaming and saying, well, why did you stay? Well, first of all, why did that person abuse? You know what I mean? Why are you asking the victim? Hello. But, you know, there's things like, what is it, Stockholm syndrome, where girls who are abducted, you know, start to protect
fall in love with their,
exactly. So it's all mindset.
Yeah. Because I think too, like you were saying, the mind tries to protect itself. So it falls in love so that hopefully that person will treat them nicer, be kinder. I was talking about it with a friend of mine last week when we were discussing my abusive relationship. And I was saying, I was always taught, you know, love heals all, it protects all, it does all the things, it covers a multitude of sin. And I was just like, you know, as much as I love some of these scriptures, some of these shits is toxic. No disrespect.
Can we use an example there?
Yeah.
Do you remember earlier this year what happened with a certain self-love ambassador who got caught cheating? And his Christian wife tried to use scripture to defend all of his behavior in taking him back.
Not tried, did. Every scripture you could
okay, so let's keep it real right now, okay? We're going to keep it real. I felt so bad for her on many different levels.
Me too.
You saw the brokenness. You saw all the signs of someone who experienced narc abuse. And I knew of this, I'm going to say, prior to it being exposed, because I had dated said person years ago. And my friends called it out. So when I disconnected, I was saved from that environment. But when I saw certain things happening, I was like, I feel sorry for her. And the more that she tried to speak on his behalf and defend with scripture, I was like, she doesn't even realize how toxic of an environment she is in, because her brain is programmed. That is what she knows. They have been college sweethearts. Her brain is programmed to believe that this is the life for me. But it's also connected to her own self-image, right? Because we have two images of ourselves. The one we display on the outside, how we walk, talk, do our makeup, our hair, and then the one on the inside of how we truly feel about we are, right? That inner vision that we have for ourselves. So sometimes we stay in these relationships because we feel like that is the best that we deserve or the best that we can get.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, something else too, it's funny how people around you or your loved ones or people will also try to protect your abuser, which sometimes, and the reason is a lot of times, especially people with narcissistic personality disorder, we're going to do a whole episode. We're just trying to like get it together because that is so loaded. We might have to do a series, but they're so charming. And they're so engaging, and they seem like the best thing ever. And because all they care about is what people think and how they come off and how they present to the world. So then the people around you will be like, you have a mom that'll be like, but he's such a good man.
I'll never do that to you.
Yeah, are you sure? They don't even believe you, and that is your mom, and he's gonna look at you like you're crazy. Like, are you sure? What are you doing to make him like that? And it's
my mom.
crazy.
My mom, she would literally be like, well, Alicia, you know how you are. No, I don't. Explain
like, what?
Let me know.
Because they're that charming and they're just like that, you know? So I'm always, every time a man, I think it was someone on our podcast, Alicia, that they were just like, every time somebody's too nice or too charming, they're like,
red flag.
I need you to show me some realness, show me some vulnerability. But you know what? Now too, like as I had started to date better, because I used to date just the worst of the worst. Because mindset, my life had always been full of trauma and drama and like things that were always in flux. It was never, so I felt safe in that, right? So I would seek it out. like, a beacon of light. Like, oh, there it is. Anything that struggle, oh yes, that's for me.
Familiar spirit.
Yes. And so I started to, when I started to date better, I would ask men in our first conversation or on our first date, what would you say some of your greatest traumas have been, and how did you work through them? If they were like, oh, well, I don't really know, immediately in my head, oh, the date is finished. It is done. You'll never see me again. Or if I asked you, especially if they were like ragging on their ex, I'd always ask, well, what did you contribute?
That's a red flag.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, 'cause I can tell you what I contributed to the domestic violence situation that I was in. I can tell you, this mouth is slick. Ooh, she is slick.
Mine too.
It is a sword. His tongue is a powerful thing, and I would exercise it in the ways that it needed to be exercised. So sometimes I would trigger situations knowing what it was going to bring up just because I was triggered. You got to own your stuff too. It's never just the other person.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of the time. I think sometimes you do have folks who are just outrageous.
We co-create every situation we are in, right?
Yeah.
Just by accepting it, you're co-creating it or allowing it.
You're a co-creator. Sorry, not sorry. This is where you got to get real honest with yourself and be like, you know what? I choose shitty ass partners because I feel like I'm shitty.
And just being real about that. And that's something that I feel like within the last 10 years or so, it's like no one wants to take accountability for anything. Like I saw it a lot in the Me Too movement. I see it a lot with Black Lives Matter. I just do. And since we're keeping it real, I see a lot of situations where it's just like everything is over there. It's everybody else's fault. That happened because of this. And of course, there are definitely, like what you said, Alicia, like extreme situations where somebody's just an absolute monster and there was nothing anybody could have done differently. But there are some times where it's like, oh, I went to an old man's hotel room at 2 a.m. in the morning. And it was just me and him in there. And I went there for a movie audition to talk about a movie at 2 a.m. alone in a man's hotel room. Does that give the man the right to violate you? Absolutely not. But at 25 years old, do you know what it means when a man called you to his hotel room at 2 a.m.?
Right.
So, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's never excusing it, but it's just like at 25 years old, if I'm doing anything at 2 a.m.,
like, booty call hours, okay?
Exactly. Like, that's booty call hours. Exactly. So just stuff like, I love that you guys are talking about this because I feel like it's almost taboo to say that anybody that's been a victim of anything can take any accountability for the role that they may play, never excusing the abuser or vilifying them in any way, but just also saying, because how do you know what to maybe do or avoid if you don't know what role you played? How do you know how to move through it?
There's a lot of people who are in toxic relationships or who attract these narcissistic partners because they don't know what red flags look like. Right. The red flags are there, but you don't know what you're looking at because you were never taught to be aware. You were never taught healthy behaviors. You were not taught, what healthy love looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. And another thing that I think happens because you end up in this loop, you get to this place where you have that mental block. So as someone who is someone that is like a mindset coach, what advice do you have for individuals who just can't seem to kind of get past their mental blocks? Like there's this feeling, and I know we feel this sometimes, some people call it writer's block if they're creatives and they're trying to create something. And there's like these spaces sometimes where you just cannot get through it. Like it's so, and you can be like the most advanced of the minds and you can have had a mindset coach for 10 years, but there's going to be a moment where you just are stuck in a loop. Do you know what I'm saying? And and I think, and that happens in toxic relationships, it happens in business, it happens all the time. What advice do you have when people feel like they're trapped in their own minds? Because it's a thing.
It is totally a thing. And here's the difference. There's a huge gap between what we know and what we actually do, right? Ooh. Because there are people, I call them motivational junkies, because they will go to every women empowerment conference. They will be on every, live to inspire. They will read every self-help book, but they're not doing nothing. Nothing, no. Right? So
take notes, sis.
They know everything, but they're not taking action, right? So I have not met anyone in my 41 years of life just yet that has been able to make those significant changes on their own, because we're stuck in our own head. Like you said, in that loop, we're riding that hamster wheel in our own head. So we have to be able to come out of our own way and get support, whether that is support from a therapist, whether that is support from a mentor, whether that is support from a coach, whether that is support from a healthy community. But you can't do it on your own. It's rare.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm a firm believer. If we were meant to do things alone, other humans wouldn't exist because we'd be our own empires,
Yep.
you know? And absolutely, I do believe that you have everything in you to create and build, you know, whatever it is that you want and desire. However, you still need someone to either bring it out of you or help you erect it. You know, I don't know one soul who's built a building by themselves. And yes, you do have things like solo founders and solopreneurs. Hell, I've been one multiple times. However, the greatest businesses that I've ever had, business ideas, strategies, all the things have always, I've gone further and farther having a partner. What does it look like for you to find a person who is committed to your success by helping you identify where those outliers are, where those major areas of opportunity are, who will tell you the truth when you bullshitting? Like, yo, yes, I'm paying you. So since you're getting a check, I need you to help me. Like, tell me when I'm doing something that, hey, you know, this is not going to lead you to where you want. Try and look at it this way.
Yeah.
Adjust this to do it that way. Doing it by yourself just makes it so much harder. It makes it so much harder.
My mentor says you can be in business for yourself, but you can't do it alone.
Yeah, you can't do it by yourself.
For yourself. You can't. Yeah. You can't. So I always recommend making a list of whether that be your immediate network or, you know, outside, but making a list and right beside it, is that person there as a connection for like deep connection or for support? And some people can be both, right? But look at the people around you. And I mean, if that person has no, I'm going to say purpose or value in your life directly, then why are they on the list? But, you know, looking at your connections, because a lot of us have unhealthy connections. We've allowed people to just show up in our life rather than be intentional about the people that we are connected to.
Especially people we've known for a long time. And they just get to stay because of time served. It's just like, well, I've known them for 20 years. And it's just like, but if you're not adding, you're taking away, first of all, especially when it comes to relationships, because it has to be an exchange. So if you're not adding, you're taking away, right? And it doesn't, and sometimes, especially now, like there's a lot of things around like no new friends, and I keep my circle tight and small. And it's just like, you're not going to get very far with that mentality.
Your old friends are not going to take you further than where they've already been.
No, unless they're on some kind of a healing journey too. And my only friendships that have sustained themselves through my 20s into my 30s are my friendships with people like Alicia who have decided to also heal and also go on a journey to be better and also try to elevate their lives. But my friends that did not do that have fallen by the wayside because I became so intentional about who I surround, because that is a direct impact on your mindset. If you're you're in a relationship with somebody, you're trying to make it work, you guys are having a tough time, you call your single homegirl who thinks everybody's a fuckboy. Her words and everything that you take in is rewiring your brain. So you're talking to someone who you love, one, whose opinion you value, two. So they're automatically going to have so much weight. Everything they say is going to have more weight. Even if you know that they're wrong, even if you know that the advice is trash, for some reason you call her because you want her to validate your bullshit. So you call her and she tells you, yeah, he ain't shit. He's this, he's that, he's that, he's that. And you're just like, all of a sudden your little molehill turns into a mountain with your partner because you brought in the wrong reinforcements, because you're not surrounded by like-minded people. When I'm having an issue with my partner, I try to talk to people who have either been married or people who are in a serious relationship where we can kind of have a similar dialogue. Not saying that single people don't have things to offer to married friends or friends in a relationship, but I do think that it depends on what that person's view is on relationships and if they really have a similar belief system to want to see me succeed. But I love that you brought that up, because it is so important that we're intentional around the people that we surround ourselves with, because it will directly impact and reflect the life that you have, for sure.
Your connections will either lead to your success or your failure. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, and when you talked about who you seek advice from, like healed people listen differently, right?
Ooh.
So, so you could be talking
different.
They listen very different. So you could call that girlfriend who, you know, thinks all men are trash, but because she's speaking from an unhealed place, she's listening to what you were saying very different than if you had that same conversation with someone who has gone through an evolution and healing process and worked on themselves and is aware. Their advice to you is going to be very different.
Very.
Yeah, very, very, very different. And I always say, people are like, oh, well, you heard the Drake song. And I'm like, listen, Aubrey, I promise you, Aubrey got some new friends to help him become Drake.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Understand, be clear. And Drake, especially with what he's building and creating and erecting, he has gotten new friends because he needed them, because Baby or the Baby or whatever it is, something about Baby, he
Birdman.
Oh, my bad. You see, y'all, I'm an auntie. No, that's not, was it Birdman?
I mean, he's the same person, but I'm saying just because there's so many babies floating around now in the world, Birdman would be a clearer distinction for our listeners.
See, help me out. Just gotta get some assistance. Birdman, right, couldn't take him to where he is now. He had to what? Get some new fucking friends. Stop acting like he's not doing the same thing he's telling you not to do. And then you have too many people who they take and embody, right, what a song is saying. And it's like, sis, this is entertainment. Don't be like,
it's not that simple. It's not that simple. It's energy, and it's rewiring your brain.
And I get it, which is why you have to have the mental fortitude to say, like, this is something that is entertaining. This is not something that I need to take and embody, like, which is why, don't get me wrong, I love the bops from the City Girls. I do. But I can't listen to it all the time because it's on a different frequency. So when I'm ready to go out and turn up, yes. But I don't listen to them in the morning because you're too susceptible.
Yeah, because then I'm gonna be mad that I don't have a Birkin, and then that just leads to other problems.
Right. First of all, go sit down.
I'm just saying, when you listen to them, don't you get like a little annoyed sometimes? You're just like, damn, why?
But do you see how it affects how you feel, though?
Of course.
The music that we listen to. And when I was younger, I used to get upset when my mother would cuss about the music choice that I had, and she's talking about how it's going to affect my mind. I'm like, it's just a song.
Yeah.
Now that I've evolved and I study the mind and how people think, and you study like all these things, you understand that the words, even the beats, the vibrations, all of those things, how they affect your chakras, how they affect your energy, how they affect your frequency. And when you talk about frequency, it's really just so like your feelings and your emotions are just labels to say what frequency you were on. So if I said that I am feeling sad or mad, I'm on a low vibration. If I am happy or excited, I'm on a high vibration.
Yeah. That's literally that emotional set point that Abraham and Esther Hicks was talking about. Like, my goodness, like to be able to identify, okay, where am I? Where do I want to be? Being in a place, in a position where you don't want to be, like how both of us were feeling all week. I was like, oh, this shit is for the birds.
Yeah. I kept saying, I was like, I am vibing low this week. And I know who I am when I'm vibing low. So I just know I just need to like take a second and not like, my partner wanted to go out yesterday, and I wasn't quite here where I am today. And I was vibing low, and I was like, I just do not, and I know it's not, and I don't recommend isolating whenever you're feeling down, because it just, I like to kind of say, like, the devil likes to talk to you when you're alone. So whenever you're feeling down, it's not good to just isolate. But I was vibing low, and I was just like, I also don't want to kind of like infect anyone with how I'm feeling, is the space you start to get to. And I just felt like from my process, I needed to just kind of sit with this and just deal. And I just remembered yesterday just feeling like, damn, I'm vibing low. I don't want to be around nobody. I don't want to he and small talk and shit like that. Like, I'm not in the mood for that. I suck at that when I'm vibing low. So it's so funny, Alicia, like all week we've kind of been on the same vibe, but you have to kind of realize, like, you wake up and it's just like, okay, you decide how you're going to feel. Like, it's up to me. It's a completely my choice with whatever is happening around you. Like, you have to kind of give yourself enough credit to know that you're still in control and you can still make a better decision to just have a very different day than you've been having. Because sometimes, because you've been vibing low, you feel like that's the only way that you can feel.
That truly is a very real thing. And it's for me, and it brings me back to one of the, and I definitely want to get this question in before we head out, but like, how do you handle like those internal changes that come with growth, whether it's
Yeah.
personal growth, professional growth, hell, even romantic growth? Because people say a lot, oh, marriage is just a piece of paper. And it's like, oh no, bullshit. There is a different experience.
Yeah.
There's a different level of responsibility that comes when you agree to be someone's wife. You know, I am a recovering runner and a track star. So I'm now learning how to stay, right? And so there are some internal changes that happen when you have to, how do you handle that? Because it's new, it's something that's different, it's something that you haven't experienced. So how do you handle those internal changes when there's growth?
So all change is uncomfortable, right? It's really messy at first, like very uncomfortable. And then it's beautiful in the end when we learn to accept the change.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of us, when we're going through those internal changes and that evolution, some of us will reject what is happening because that's what our minds are programmed to do. Like you said, being a runner and a track star, because you're like, okay, I'm gonna just go this way, right? My mind is programmed for safety. This don't feel safe. I'm out.
I'm gonna head out.
Fight or flight.
But sometimes if you had continued going in that direction, if it was a healthy situation and you broke through that fear, you would see that there are rewards on the other side of that. But because your brain is programmed for safety, you went back to what you exited that situation. But I strongly believe in order for us to be in any encounter with another person or to feel comfortable with being able to love others more or at all, we need to be able to love ourselves. You know, as much as we spend time and energy getting to know other people, you know, if we meet a new partner, we want to get to know them. We want to learn them. We want to, you can recognize the sound of their voice and recognize the back of their head from a mile away. We take that time to get to know somebody else. But how often do we take that kind of time and intention and effort to get to know ourselves? And if we're going to, use the Bible as an example, it talks about love God and then love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, we forgot the middle part. You're supposed to love yourself first, right? So it's a huge part of healing. It's a huge part of mindset, being able to have that true knowledge, that self-knowledge of understanding who we are, what we want, what we love, what makes us tick. If we don't understand those things and if we don't learn to accept ourselves and practice self-love with mind, body, and soul, then it's going to affect every other relationship outside of us, with our kids, with our partners, with our friends, with our coworkers. So I always make it a priority for myself to have a self-care routine that includes mind, body, and soul every single day. So when I list the things that I do every single day, people are like, oh, that sounds like a lot.
Oh, tell us, what do you do? Tell us. Okay. So, what do you do?
So for the mind, I make sure that I'm reading something every single day. I'm a huge personal development junkie. So I make sure that I read, whether it's 20 minutes a day or 10 pages a day, I'm reading something to keep my mind sharp every single day. I make sure that I listen to music that soothes my soul. Sound and sound therapy. In church, they use music to set the atmosphere.
Yes.
We don't realize in a lot of our popular hip hop and cultural music, there's certain sounds and beats in there that are, I want to say negative, but they
vibrating for sure.
Exactly. So they vibrate and they bring us to a certain frequency and we don't realize, because it's around here, dealing with our sexual organs and all those things, and it affects how we function. So I am listening to soothing sounds and things to calm my energy and my mind. Okay. And then to making sure that I do, especially someone who's an introvert, I set time aside every single day to be alone, to remove and eliminate like outside distractions so that I know that I'm listening to my intuition and not someone else's opinion. And then for my body, I make sure I always have water. I'm sipping on water every day. I have a water bottle that's 1 gallon, so I sip throughout the day. We're made of mainly water, right? So I gotta make sure I take care of my body.
Yes.
And I go outside and stay physically active. So I try to do, I'm gonna say 6,000 to 10,000 steps a day, because they say that healthy motion equals healthy emotion.
Oh, yes. I like that. Okay. I haven't heard that one. Okay.
Yeah. So I make sure that I stay active. I'm not the girl that you're going to see in the gym multiple times a day. Just not me.
You just move your body, which is,
yes.
I'm all about that.
Any kind of movement, at your own pace.
Yeah.
And then I make sure that I get enough sleep every night. I am not that girl that I used to be with like team hustle. I'll sleep when I'm dead. No, my body needs sleep. I need to rest. I need to reset. So I make sure that I get like 7 to 8 hours sleep every night. If I don't, I'm not nice.
Yeah.
And then for my soul, prayer and meditation. Prayer is me talking to God. Meditation is me being still and listening. Because sometimes we pray and we have these conversations, but it's like on a one-sided phone, like we're talking and then we hang up the phone. We don't listen to the other side. And then making sure gratitude and affirmations. Those are big for me because that definitely helps with my vibration. It helps me to reset, to actively write in my gratitude journal and write out my affirmations. And then having a healthy community of connections. So I make sure that I have my support system to help regulate my feelings, to make me feel safe, especially when you've dealt with, childhood wounds and childhood traumas and toxic relationships where people invalidated your feelings and gaslighted you. It's important to have that healthy community of connections where, it may be different people. Like I have different people that I go to that I speak to about business, then different people I go to that I speak to about relationships. But I have that support system to help me to feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. Those are awesome things that I hope our audience took some notes on, please, because that is the way, because people just think healing happens. And that's why I love that response, because a lot of times, especially because healing is cool now and it's like a thing that all the influencers and everyone's doing, and then how and what they're doing, they don't really know what to tell you.
No.
And it's like,
they're not healing for real.
Yeah. And Alicia, you and I were having a conversation about someone where sometimes people will say they're on these journeys and it just sounds so good to kind of say that you're this woke, healed, amazing person doing all the things. And then by the time something happens where you're supposed to show up as this healed person,
you're not that.
You know a tree by the fruit it bears. Yes. And we can tell a lot by the state of our society, the state of our children, just how the world is, that somebody is lying. Okay. Y'all are not healing at the level you say that you're healing. It's not possible. It is not showing up that way. It's not manifesting in that way, the way that everyone acts the way let me tell you something. When I'm on social media and I'm scrolling, I'm like, wow, everybody is just so healed and amazing and woke and doing all the things. And then it's like, but it's not translating in the real world is my point. Yeah. Virtually, we're all there. But when it comes times in real life to really do the work and show up, it's just not happening. So I am so happy that you gave this exquisite example of what someone looks like when they're actually doing the work. Mind, body, soul. You cannot roll out of bed and smoke a blunt and think that you're woke. It just doesn't work like that. Yeah. You're not even drinking enough water every day talking about you woke. That makes no sense. It has to all. What do you say, Alicia? The math ain't mathing.
The math ain't mathing. It's not mathing. It's not adding up. We have added 1 + 1 and it equals -4. How, Sway?
It's not mathing. So thank you for that. And I really hope everyone listening takes away from that. And even if you're taking 1 or 2 of those things every day, we're not saying everyone needs to do all the things. We're all in different places.
Just start somewhere.
Yeah, and do something. It doesn't just happen. And I love what you talked about earlier about after the age of 25. Just how difficult it really is. Like sometimes we feel like, oh, it's just going to happen. I'm still young. I'm still this. It's like, no, you are so programmed and conditioned, honey, that you need a little bit of assistance. It's just not that simple.
You look at your life right now, you look at the results of where you are presently.
Yeah.
That is a reflection of what's going on in your mind.
Yes.
So if you're not happy with those results, you need a coach, you need a therapist, you need a mentor, you need a support system.
And are you taking clients, Makini? Do you take clients still?
Yep.
Okay. Because we know you big time. So, sometimes you get to a certain level, you like, oh, I'll talk at a conference or something, but I don't take clients anymore. Y'all, Makini is still taking clients. Where can we stay in touch with you, Makini? Like, how can we stay connected? How can people book you? All the things.
Absolutely. Yes. So you can find me on my website, iwalkinmystilettos.com, or if it's easier, makinismith.com. You can find me on social, on Instagram most, even though it's acting a fool these days, at The Real Makini Smith, Twitter at Makini Smith, or you could just Google Makini Smith or Walk in My Stilettos.
Awesome. And you do, and Alicia, you mentioned her podcast, The Walk in My Stilettos. You can also tune into your podcast, which is, what is it, like the top 1.5% podcast?
Yes,
out of like 2 million plus podcasts? We trying to be like, Makini, we need to have an offline, like, how do we get to that? Okay.
I love it.
You can definitely tune into the podcast. I don't know, honestly, after 3 years of doing the podcast, someone who's completely introverted, I'm just grateful that people tune in to listen to those conversations to help the show rank in that top percent. So I just feel like I'm doing something right.
Yeah,
you are and is. Listen, I am so grateful. Make sure everyone that you are staying connected with us at Triggered AF PC on all the platforms. You can stay connected with me at Alicia Reese. Danny, where can we stay connected with you?
You can stay connected with me at Danny Foster Coaching on Instagram, DannyFosterCoaching.com, Danny Foster on Facebook. You can also go to TriggeredAFPodcast.com as well. So yeah, this was so awesome. Thank you so much, Makini, for all of your insight and dropping all these knowledge bombs and just doing all the things for the people, because it is so important for us, especially after COVID and this pandemic. I think a lot of us realize that we're batshit crazy. And like, for real, like, you have to like sit with yourself, like, wow, am I the raging psycho bitch? Like, I think I might be. Because divorce rates went up, murder suicides went up, like a lot of things like skyrocketed that are not good, and they went in the wrong direction. And I think it was a testament to having to just stop. Like, we're always on go, especially Americans. We're so fast paced, especially if you live in urban areas and cities. And it's like nobody just stops for a second. So I just loved this conversation of just kind of taking that time. Self-care is really not just like getting pedicures and spa dates. It's like, no, self-care is reading a book, sharpening your mind, soothing your soul, taking care of your body. Like, I love that example so much, because I'm so tired of everyone showing pictures at the spa talking about self-care. Like, can we go a little deeper, people? Okay. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Makini, for your time and your energy and for sharing with us. You are awesome. It was such a pleasure to meet you. And you guys tune in next time for another episode of Triggered AF, the podcast. Yay! Bye. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Triggered AF. Remember, don't be consumed by your triggers. Confront it and then work to release it. Whether you leave us more triggered than you came, or you're feeling like you've been open to a new perspective, our hope is that you've grown. Make sure to share this episode with a friend who's trigger happy and tag us while you're listening. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next week, pull it together, girl.